Hello, everybody. I'm Scott. I make the Juicebox podcast, and something happened recently that has got me here making a video, which is not something I'm completely comfortable with. So I'm doing my best, and I hope you give me a second. Recently, I heard someone refer to me as, "Oh, that's the guy that makes the podcast," and it got me thinking that I've gotten so far away from where all this started. The podcast itself started in 2015 in January, but before that, I wrote a blog about type 1 diabetes that I started in 2007 in January. So, we're coming up on 18 years of me making things that people read or listen to or watch that center around type 1 diabetes. And everything's just gotten so big at this point. The podcast is perennially in the top 30 on the Apple podcast charts for medicine. And I think it's kind of become this situation where I'm not a person anymore to some of you. I'm just a voice or the guy that makes the podcast. And I was sad to think that we had gotten away from that kind of personal, close connection that I felt like I had when I was blogging and, when the podcast began. When I started making the podcast in January of 2015, if I'm being honest, I think that first year the show got 25,000 downloads. So it got an amount of downloads in a year that the podcast now gets in a day. And it's just gotten really big. And I wanted to kind of take it back to its roots to say, hello, I'm Scott. I make the podcast, and it's nice to meet you and maybe help you put a face to the voice that you're hearing on the show. That's pretty much why I'm here today, other than to tell you that I'm going to make more of these. I'm going to go back in time and sit in front of the camera and try to get comfortable talking to a camera, which is not particularly easy. I'm usually on that microphone and nobody can see me while I'm talking. But I'm going to go back in time. I think to the day my daughter was diagnosed, and that time that she was diagnosed when she was 2 years old. She's 20 now. So 18 years ago, I think I'm going to take you back to that time, talk about the diagnosis, and then that first year that, kind of led to writing the blog, what happened while I was writing the blog that led to the podcast, and how the podcast grew from something that got 2,000 downloads a month to something that gets hundreds and hundreds and thousands an hour. It's been a journey, and I'd like to share it with you, and I'd also like for you to know more about me, because I'm worried that at this point, I don't know. It just probably feels like I'm behind a curtain somewhere and I'm not a real person. But I absolutely am. This is me. I make the podcast right here at this desk. I record every day. Today I recorded 2 episodes, one with a researcher from Joslin, which I think you guys are going to love, and one with Jenny, who's on a lot of the episodes. So if you're super new to the podcast, just dive in. There's no good place to start. I think there's 1,400 episodes or something like that. But if you're looking for management stuff specifically and you're more newly diagnosed, the Bold Beginning series is awesome. If you're looking to dig a little more into diabetes management, try the Pro Tip series. But we have a ton of stuff. If you want to hear stories that you don't hear other places, we have the After Dark series. There's the mental health stuff, where a therapist who has type 1 comes in and talks to me about a whole bunch of different, everything really. From caregiver burnout, which is a 6-part series that we just put out, to things like, what's the craziest thing that we've done so far? I don't even know. I'm sorry, I'm not very good at this. But we have a really complete mental health series. We also have this whole series on algorithm pumping. So if you want to learn about Control IQ or iLet or Omnipod 5, anything like that, we have all that there for AID people. The Diabetes Variables series, which just goes over a ton of different variables that impact your blood sugars. I have the Defining Diabetes series, which is over 50 very short episodes. It just explains terminology to you. You don't realize sometimes when you're diagnosed that they start throwing words at you like bolus and basal, and you think, well, I don't know what that means. Gosh, we have a whole series, a pro tip series for people with type 2 diabetes. There's so much, to be honest with you. It's hard for me to sit here and just remember it all. I've been doing this now this is my 11th year. So 11 years making this podcast. I think I put up episode 1403 today. I'm super proud of it. I'm super proud of how it helps people, and I'm trying every day to learn more and to make it a better and better place for you to come and learn about diabetes, find community, And anything really that you need, I hope it's here. Now, if you're listening to this on YouTube, hey, what's up? And if you're listening to this in the private Facebook group, I really think I'm doing this for you guys more than anything else. There's 57,000 members in that private Facebook group at this point. And it just feels like it's gone from the point where you guys knew who I was and that I was there with great intentions for you and trying to help. And now I've just sort of maybe become a moderator or, a faceless avatar, which is true because my avatar doesn't have a face. Maybe I should fix that too. That's pretty much it, other than to say I'll be back soon to tell you about Arden's diagnosis, to go through that first year when I started the blog, how blogging went, what I learned there, how I ended up making a podcast. That came because I wrote a book, and then I was on a television show promoting my book, and the host of that show told me I was good at talking to people. And so when blogging kind of went away, I started making a podcast. I did not expect all of this to happen. I did not expect to be in the top 20 or 30 on an Apple chart every day for years and years and years. I did not expect that the things I would say would be heard by so many people. I didn't expect the amount of responsibility that would come with all this, which I still, I'm learning every day how to manage properly. And I didn't realize that I'd get to be the one to choose what you hear. It's a big thing, and I don't take it lightly. So check out the podcast. If you've never seen me before and you're seeing this somehow, Juicebox Podcast, anywhere you get audio, juiceboxpodcast.com, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, like places like that. The show's completely free. You can follow me on Instagram if you like, or TikTok. Facebook, there's a public page for the podcast, just called Juicebox Podcast. Might be called Bold with Insulin. I'm not sure even. It would help if I knew, if I was trying to get you to check it out. But then the private Facebook group, which is a gem. Like, it's just a wonderful community and a great place to be. That's Juicebox Podcast, Type 1 Diabetes on Facebook. It's a private group, but we let everybody in who has a connection to diabetes, type 2, caregiver. There's a real great blend in there of adults with type 1 and people who love people with type 1. And you should see how they support each other. It genuinely is something I'm incredibly proud of. That's pretty much it. I'll be back soon. I appreciate you listening. Take care. Again, I'm Scott, and I make the Juicebox Podcast.